Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald, and we have a lot to get into today. We're going to briefly talk about the 53-man roster, give our NFL predictions, go through each division, and give who we have making the playoffs, and then we will finish off with the Eagles versus Patriots, as it is officially game week here for the 2023 NFL season. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour, and follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell54, and follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports or EOP Sports. And if you are joining us live, let us know your thoughts in the comments of the roster. Who's your surprise team? Whether they're going to make the playoffs or not make the playoffs, and give us your thoughts on the Eagles versus Patriots game. Connor, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I'm just excited to finally be talking regular season football and be through those like playoff or preseason previews and reviews that we were doing, because it's like by the end of it, you knew how the roster was shaking out and you knew how everything was going. And you're like, just give me the regular season already. And now we're here. We've waited. Huge news about Travis Kelce today. Hopefully it ends up being nothing serious and he continues to play, because you always want a team to be at their best. So you don't want the Chiefs to be down their number one wide receiver, probably their second best player on the entire football. You could argue Chris Jones, but he's probably not going to be on the football field. But, you want the best of the best on the field. And Patrick Mahomes is probably going to make magic with anybody, but you hate to see Kelce go down this late in his career and how as good as he is.
Yeah, they said it wasn't an ACL, but still, I have for all those that have done their fantasy drafts, that's a big one. Especially with the game being 2 days away.
You got one tonight. You're lucky.
I have one
you got
tonight.
To wait and see it out.
This is my fourth. I think it's my fourth one, but in this one I kind of joined late. But yeah, I have one tonight, and I have the number one overall pick. And I was actually considering, would I take Kelce? I mean, Justin Jefferson is there, Jamar Chase is there, Eckler. And then I was considering Kelce, and then this news came out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pass on Kelce. So we'll see what happens when I have that draft coming up in a couple of hours. But let's start with the 53-man roster. We won't spend too much time. We don't think there were any surprises. Looking at when we did our 53-man roster prediction show last week, I had 5 that didn't make the team, but that I had on my roster. Britton Covey, but during that episode I said Britton Covey might not make it and will be on the practice squad we brought up like he was last year. Nicholas Morrow was kind of a surprise for me. But he's back on the practice squad. Kevon Wallace, I think, was the big surprise for me. Now, I know we have differing opinions of him. Obviously, when he first got drafted, we were both high on Kevon Wallace. But he hasn't really performed to the expectations of which we thought he would perform. And now they cut him, and now he's with the Arizona Cardinals. So he's with Jonathan Gannon, going to play for that crappy team. And Aaron Sipos, again, he got cut, but he brought back on the practice squad. And he was another one who I think we both said, potentially get cut, bring on the practice squad. But kind of before we came on, you were talking about when the Eagles devote 10 to 11 roster spots to offensive linemen, to defensive linemen. They have 7 cornerbacks. I mean, there's going to be a lighter depth at other positions, like linebacker, like wide receiver. They only have 4. What was the biggest? And again, I said Kevon Wallace was the biggest, because again, I was a big Kevon Wallace guy. I thought he had a better camp this year. But what were your thoughts on the initial 53-man, and kind of what was the biggest, just the biggest thing that you saw when the roster came out?
I mean, for me, I still think we could have went 3 wide receivers and done something more at wide receiver. You look how thin we are. That's one of the positions. People worry about safety. We've done this with safety for the last 2 or 3 seasons now. Since Malcolm Jenkins left, we've basically just been a revolving door of people that's ineffective players at the safety position. One guy stands out, and then you got 3 or 4 guys who are half-assing the job and make us miserable. But to me, wide receiver, you're so thin. If you lose AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and we don't want to wish that upon or even Zacchaeus or Watkins, you lose any of them, you're so paper thin. And we saw Britton Covey last year. They said, so there were reports in the offseason, Britton Covey got better. He's a more effective, he can be a better wide receiver. We can actually use him on the offense. I don't know if I believe it because they still didn't show it in the preseason. They still only really exclusively played him as a punt returner. And we haven't
seen. They had a lot of blowout games then. He wasn't out there.
Yeah, like he barely played. Like if you were trying to sell the story to me that this guy's gotten better as a receiver, but the only thing you will do is play him in camp, but you won't put him out there in the preseason, and like you're not hiding anything. Everyone knows he's an undersized wide receiver who's not going to be able to do a whole lot beyond punt return. So it's not like you're hiding this hidden gem from anybody. So I mean, it was kind of frustrating because there was reports and people were saying, oh, he looks better as a wide receiver, and then you didn't see him as a wide receiver, and now he's getting the same treatment as last year, where he's going to go down and go up 3 times, and then in the 4th week they have to make the decision if he's an effective enough player to keep on the roster 53 for the rest of the year, which we know that they're going to do because they're not going to invest in the punt return position. But that one to me, like wide receiver, I feel like you're playing with fire after a while, with going 4 or 5 guys being very thin. Well, this year's worse because at least Zach Pascal was a big-bodied wide receiver. Zacchaeus and Watkins are not that big-bodied of wide receivers, so you start to get concerned about if you lose a body for any given amount of time. The concern there for me, I'm more concerned about wide receiver, like I said, than safety, because we've been down this road with safety before. We know how he's going to fill it in, plug in some random pieces, and we're going to move on. Linebacker, same thing. He's just going to plug some pieces in, make it work, move on. But you lose any wide receiver, and that just makes Brown's job harder, Smith's job harder, just makes jobs harder. Or even worse, if it's one of them, it makes our offense way worse. You lose either one of those 2 guys, we're way worse.
Yeah, so I agree with you there. But when it comes to the linebacker and safety position, I wouldn't be as concerned if we didn't have all new guys. Like Marcus Epps is gone. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson gone. TJ Edwards gone. Kaiser White gone. Like if we had somebody coming back, and again, this is with a new defensive coordinator, who obviously we like him a lot better than we like Jonathan Gannon. So we think there'll be improvement there. But you have a new guy wearing the green dot in Kobe Dean, who's going to play next to Zach Cunningham, and then you have Reed Blankenship, and I'm assuming it's going to be Terrell Edmonds. The Eagles put out a depth chart, and they have both Edmonds and Evans as potential starters. They're not going to show their hand there. Just like the running back position, they have all 5 or all 4 of them that are listed as the number 1 because, I mean, obviously the Eagles are going to be running back by committee, and it's going to be DeAndre Swift, Kenny Gainwell, Rashad Penny, and then I think the 4th guy is clearly going to be Boston Scott. But I get what you're saying when it comes to the wide receivers, because when you look at the practice squad, it's Devin Allen, it's Greg Ward, and it's Britton Covey. They don't really have anybody.
And Joseph Nagata, who severely underwhelmed. Like, you're not going to bring that guy up this year. So
and again, last year the Eagles got fortunate to where they did not suffer a bunch of injuries at any position really, but especially the wide receiver position. Yeah, there were nicks and bruises because it's a long season, so nobody's going to be 100%. So everybody's going to be banged up a little bit, but they didn't lose A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith for long periods of time. We need Quez Watkins to really step up and be better than he was last year, because I believe we both think he underachieved last year, and then had that big drop in the Super Bowl, which I was watching earlier, and it really hurt to watch. But so, I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to be the key is going to be health, and I think if the Eagles can stay healthy, they've clearly one of the best, if not the best, rosters in the NFL. Do they have depth concerns at certain positions? Yes. And do we know what the linebackers and safeties are going to look like in this defense? No. But as Sirianni said today in his press conference, they were very, very vanilla throughout preseason. They didn't want to show anything. So I'm hoping that when we get to week 1 against the Patriots, they come out and we see something and it's a blowout and the defense looks really good, and we're not going to be thinking about potential downfalls. But obviously, now in the next 5 days, we're going to sit here thinking what can go wrong until we see the product on the field.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other things that surprised me, like 4 tight ends because of the last minute Albert O deal was, I don't know that Jack Stoll feels like Boston Scott to me. He feels like a guy that the team really likes, even though he's like a mediocre player at everything that he does. I feel like he's like a favorite of Howie, and that's what keeps him around. Grant Calcaterra, like you could have probably maybe moved him to the practice squad to fit Albert Owen and hold another wide receiver or linebacker, or go where something was really thin and add a different body, because I don't think anyone was rushing for Grant Calcaterra or Jack Stoll. I really don't think Jack Stoll was clearing waivers and not going to make it through, like if you had have went that direction.
Mhm.
I just think, I mean, how he's good at building his roster. He made some good decisions. I like the product that's out there. I just think they're light in places and heavy in places where they probably could have went the other way and made it a more balanced roster and not lost the people that they would have had to let go through waivers or release them and had to hope that no one signed them by the next day. So I mean, at the end of the day, overall, it looks like a good roster. Nothing surprised me. I mean, Contavious Street was a bit of a surprise on the defensive side of the ball. Marlon Tuipaludo had a really good preseason, but they're like insanely heavy at the defensive tackle
They
position.
have
They got
seven
seven
defensive
DTs.
tackles.
So I mean, you have to expect they're going to have some sort of very heavy rotation there.
Well,
But I mean,
we also have to remember 46 only, I think it's 46 only just on
yeah, so you're
47.
probably sitting one or two each day, and like
Yeah,
the hope to me is that Davis and Carter are going to be the heaviest part of that, and these other guys are just a little bit of extra. You really want to hope that those two guys are everything they're advertised to be, and so far the hype on Jalen Carter is like out of control. So I hope it
right.
is as good as it is, because the hype from like, and it's not even just the Eagles. Like, yeah, the Eagles are making comments, but then you see these reports of anonymous other executives or whatever, and it's like people see this. People know they might have not made the right decision, but it was true. There was a
The
report
Eagles
that came out
potentially got
there.
the best player in the draft, potentially.
Definitely, 100%. He was supposed to be a top 5 pick, top 3 pick, if it wasn't for
Off
the
the
for
field.
the
Yeah.
off the field things that came up. But it even that report that came out by Tim McManus there yesterday, that the Eagles felt they had the best position to bring him in and
Mhm.
make him mature, put the off the field issues behind him, because they have Fletcher Cox. They have Brandon Graham on the other side of the ball. They had Jason Kelsey. They had these veteran guys who will give you a slap on the helmet and say, don't be an idiot. And then you had Jordan Davis and the
Yep.
Kobe Dean, and you had those that Georgia love, that he loved those guys at Georgia, and they were teammates, and the camaraderie that they have, it all made way too much sense.
Yeah, even the Georgia coaches said that. When Jordan Davis was around Jalen Carter was at his best, whether it's behavior or practice habits or whatever. But that last year at Georgia, he kind of got off of that, and maybe not having Jordan Davis there had something to do with that. So for the Eagles' sake, let's hope that having Jordan Davis around, having the Philly Dogs around, is going to be good for Jalen Carter, for Nolan Smith, Kaylee Ringo. And the other position that I really want to, we kind of touch base is cornerback. Obviously, Slay, Bradbury, and Maddox, and that we said Job were easily in there. Ringo, but having Eli Ricks had a heck of a camp. Obviously, really good preseason. Howie Roseman talked them up a little bit. During his press conference, this guy's going to be good. Like remember a couple years back, we were looking at the Eagles cornerbacks thinking, what are they going to do? And now, like, they have so much depth at the cornerback position and it's young too. You think about Goodrich, Ricks, Ringo, Job, like they're all young, under the age of 24, so 23. So like they're going to grow, get to learn behind 2 all pros, and eventually take over and be the mainstays in the secondary for the Eagles.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we got lucky letting Mekhi Garner go through the waiver wire
Yep.
and him coming out the other side, especially with the way that he performed on special teams. I thought something would stand out enough to say, we're going to take the shot on that. The Eagles let this guy go. But apparently, nobody wanted to take that shot. That doesn't mean later on in the season, when you make your protection of 4 guys each week, that's not to say that if you don't protect Mekhi Garner one week and somebody gets a cornerback injury or a key special teams injury, that they're not going to come and poach him off of our practice squad. You just don't know. So it'll be interesting to see. But I agree with you. Like last year, you sit there and you're like, okay, we got Slay under contract, we got Bradbury, but by the end of their contracts, what's going to happen? And now they're in a position where it's like, do you even consider like a first round corner anymore? Do you hope these guys develop into these guys who can just jump in for Darius Slay, who can jump in for Avonte Maddox, who can jump in for James Bradbury when the time comes?
Howie's never gonna. I don't. At least I don't want to use the word never, but like I think corner along with linebacker and safety, like they're the position that he'll take in the second, third round, but first round he's going to prioritize either quarterback if you need it, which we don't need, knock on wood right now, or offensive defensive lineman. That's going to be the big priority for Howie, and that's how they're going to continue to build.
100%. So like I don't think you're ever going to see that. Like every time people mock draft, running backs and safeties and linebackers, I'm like, listen, Howie gets it to need, but Howie doesn't give a rat's behind about filling those voids with a pick. He's right. Like look at the Darius Slay trade a few years ago. He will go and get a veteran who's on his way out from a team for whatever reason. James Bradbury, he got the boot from the New York Giants because of his his age, his contract situations like that. Darius Slay left because of the coach at the time. Like you just
who happens to be on this coaching staff
happens to be on this coaching staff now. But like he just waits for those opportune moments, and he's a guy who hops in. That's why I'm surprised by Isaiah Simmons and they didn't get in on that. But that's one where I think it was just like because he's coming from Arizona and it's Jonathan Gannon there. He's like, no, you're not doing business with Howie. Not on my watch.
Yep. All right. So that's our roster, Philadelphia Eagles roster talk. And we both agree that the Eagles have, if not the best roster in football, definitely a top 3 roster in the NFL. Let's move to our 2023 NFL season predictions. We're going to go through each division quickly. We're going to give who we think is going to win the division. And at the end of that, we'll give our 7 playoff teams. And if you want to, I don't know if you want to give MVP. I don't know if we want to go through all the awards, but we can give a couple like players that we think are going to stand out in this season. So let's start in the AFC. We'll save the NFC and the NFC East for last. Let's start in the AFC East. Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Pats. How do you think that's going to play out?
I got the Buffalo Bills winning it. I just think they're still the best team in that division. They're still the best offense. And, the offense, it's an offensive league. It's an offensive driven league. And like Miami Dolphins are doing really good with Tua. Do I trust Tua to stay healthy for a full season? I don't know. But I have the Buffalo Bills making it. And I actually have the New York Jets as a wild card team and the Dolphins and Patriots not get in there. I think the Patriots are by far the worst team in that division. I mean, there's going to be a massive leash given to Belichick there. And
is there?
I think
he hasn't done anything without Tom Brady.
I know, and then eventually at what point do you say, okay, the dynasty was you and Tom Brady. It's not just you. It's time to part ways. Like, I don't know when that comes or when that happens. And I also think for the Miami Dolphins, it's the Tua thing. Tua has to stay healthy. Everybody has to stay healthy. It all has to work. Is it going to work? Buffalo going pound for pound against Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers. I'm giving the edge to Aaron Rodgers every time, and I'm giving the edge to Josh Allen every time. So I think that the fact that they have to face those 2 teams twice, I think it's Buffalo and New York for me out of that division.
All right, so I have the Bills also winning the division, and then I have the Dolphins finishing in second. I think Tua will stay healthy in that offense. And they have a 4x100 relay team on that offense, with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devin Achane, and like they could potentially add Jonathan Taylor. That's going to be an offense that's going to be very, very explosive. And obviously, like you said, it depends on health. If Tua does get hurt, then they have to go to Mike White, and then things can go downhill. But as long as Tua stays healthy, which I think he will this year for the most part, he may miss a game or two. Then Tua and the Miami Dolphins are going to make the playoffs. I have the Jets finishing in third, but even though 11-6, I have them missing the playoffs with 11 wins. Missing the playoffs. You'll see how where I.
Well, we talked before we came on the air, and I was like, I don't envy these teams in the AFC because there's going to be a lot of above 500 teams that are going to miss the cut, and not just 9-8, like 10-7 and 11-6 that aren't even going to make the playoffs.
And then I have the Pats, like you said, the Pats are the worst team in the division, and this could be the swan song for Belichick. Who knows? He may get another year, but we'll see. But yeah, so I have the Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Pats out of the AFC East. Let's move to the AFC West. I have the Chiefs winning the division. Now, obviously, big news with Travis Kelce's injury in practice, hyperextended his knee. They said that his ACL is still intact, could miss the game this week. But that could be big news. I have the Chargers making the playoffs and finishing in second place. Kellen Moore, I think, is going to do wonders for Justin Herbert. Now, Justin Herbert has, I think, underachieved throughout the early parts of his career. Could be a little something to do with Brandon Staley and not giving him an offensive coach. But now he has an offensive coach, has a lot of weapons. Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson. Like, they have a lot of weapons. And if that defense can make a stop here and there, the Chargers will be good. The Broncos and the Raiders are going to finish under 500 and round out the division. So I have Chiefs, Chargers making the playoffs, followed by the Broncos and Raiders.
Yeah, I got the Chiefs too. I mean, I think that's usually the easiest bet every offseason at this point, as long as Patrick Mahomes is there. It hasn't seemed to matter what they do on defense because he's going to go out there and he's going to put the points up. I mean, you look at last year, 496 points for. Nearest team was 455. Then there was a 418, a 404. And then after that, everything drops under 300. So as long as they're putting points up, it doesn't even matter. So, and then, yeah, I got the Chargers second too. I don't have them making it though. But I mean, the AFC, like, there's probably going to be so many different predictions from everybody and where people are going to land, because you could hit, you could miss, but there's like easily like probably 10 or 12 teams that are going to be vying for very limited, probably 12 teams that are vying for a very limited number of spots at the end of the day, that are in the playoffs and in the wild card. So that makes things really challenging. And then, yeah, I got the Raiders dead last. I don't think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be really bad. I think that Josh McDaniel has taken the same. I think it's going to be his last year in Vegas. I don't think you can justify keeping him around, and I don't think you can justify getting to the point where, okay, we get to draft a quarterback. You got to give me 2 or 3 more years because I got my new quarterback. No, he went with Jimmy Garoppolo this year. He's taken the Bill Belichick approach. It's so eerily weird how similar these two go in their love for the same players. It's going to be the end for him in Vegas. And Vegas needs to win. Teams go to Vegas to win and to make money. And the Vegas Raiders are always going to make money, but they got to start winning at some point. And I don't think they're doing it with McDaniels.
Does Tom Brady take a snap for the Raiders this year?
I don't think so. There's people like, I've heard of people taking them in the very last round of fantasy drafts just to hang on and see what happens. But I just can't imagine. But you never know. You never know. I'm not going to rule it out. I think the Broncos will be a lot better than the Raiders, like significantly. Like, I think they'll end up 8-9, 9-8. But next year, I do think the Broncos will be a lot better. Like, give it the full year under Peyton to clean things up and then get into year 2. He made the comments about the former coach and tried to walk it back, but we all know the truth. Mm-hmm. You don't have to lie. We know that is true. We all watched the same Broncos team you did last year. You don't have to walk those comments back.
Yeah, I have the Broncos finishing under 500, but I think,
like I said, I think 8-9, 9-8, like they could teeter depending on how certain matchups go. But
all right, let's move to the AFC North. Who you got in that division?
This was a tough one too, because I think all 4 teams could end up at least 9-8 or better. But I got the Cincinnati Bengals winning it, and it was really tough. I debated the Bengals or the Ravens on this one. I got the Bengals winning it, and then I got the Ravens in second, taking the next wild card spot. Then I got the Browns, and then I got the Steelers. Unfortunately, 9-8 in that division. Like, Tomlin's probably going to get his just above 500 season again and continue that like crazy. I think he's been above 500 every year since he was a coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that will continue on, but 9-8 is just not going to cut it in that division. You got to be a lot better than I think the Steelers are.
So I have the Bengals winning the division. They'll be really good. The Ravens finishing in second. The Steelers finishing in third. All 3 teams making the playoffs. The Bengals, Ravens, and Steelers are all going to make the playoffs, and the Browns coming in 4th place. They'll still be at like 7-8 wins, but they're just.
I think the thing with the Browns for me is like the defense can be a lot better. They weren't that good last year, and then the offense I think can take a massive step forward. But there's too many ifs and ands to that roster. Like Deshaun Watson was off for 2 years. How much is that really affecting him? But we did see the last 2 games he did super good. He was starting to pick it up. What happens with the full off season and a full year with them instead of coming in week 12? And then can the defense step up? Because I don't know if I trust the Browns offense to be able to put up the points. They're going to need a little bit of help from a stop perspective. But I mean, I think they can at least better the Steelers' 9-8 record that Tomlin is guaranteed to likely get.
We'll see. All right, let's go to the AFC South, which could potentially be the worst division in football, comparing them with the NFC South. Both South divisions are really, really bad. I have the Jags winning the division at 11-6, and then I have the Titans, Texans, and Colts all finishing under 500, becoming in that order. So I have Jags in the playoffs after winning the division, followed by the Titans, Texans, and Colts.
I have it the same way. There's the AFC South and NFC South are horrible. They're horrible. And the AFC South I think is probably a bit better than the NFC South because at least there's some direction for the AFC South teams. Like, you got them trending somewheres. The NFC South, the Falcons are a mess. The Bucks are like, we'll get into it, but they're all a mess. They're all just trying to plug some random pieces in and pray. Where at least the AFC South, like, the Colts said, okay, this bridge quarterback situation, it's not working. We got to invest. And they invest. I don't like the quarterback they invested in. I won't lie. I don't think it was the best investment for them. But, you made the investment. You took the step forward. It is what it is.
So my playoff teams in the AFC and in order go, Bengals are going to be the 1 seed. Bills the 2 seed. The Chiefs the 3 seed. Jags the 4 seed. Ravens the 5, Steelers the 6, Chargers the 7.
Yeah, I got the Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, Jags. And it's tough, man. Those top 3 teams are so good.
Chiefs, Bills, and
I don't
Bengals
envy that at all. And then I got the Jets, I got the Ravens, and I got the Chargers.
Okay. So the difference is you have the Jets and I have the Steelers.
But I do want to say something. I am not driving the Jets hype train. Like, some people think they're going to be like 14-3 or like this.
I don't think Robert Saleh is that good of a head coach.
I don't think he is. I don't think the defense is like amazing either.
Did you hear what DJ Reed said? Was it DJ Reed said that he thinks that they're going to be historically good, like up with the 85-86 Bears and the early 2000 Ravens defense? That's what he said.
But see, that's the thing. That hype train for the Jets, like, people want the Jets to be so good, so bad that they're that team this year, that people are just hyping them out of control. When I'm not saying they're a bad team, I just think if you come toe-to-toe with the Chiefs or the Bengals or the Bills, you're going to get beat. I don't think that your combination of offense and defense is enough to, A, stop those offenses, or B, go pound for pound offense versus offense. And if you're in a 50 point game where a team's scoring 50 points, that you're going to be able to put up the 54 instead of the 53. I just don't think it's that team.
And the Jets haven't made the playoffs since 2011, I think, something like that.
This is definitely their better roster. I'm just not buying the hype train that some people are driving.
I think Aaron Rodgers is going to he's going to start showing a little, nicks in the armor, cracks. He'll show he's a little cooked. All right, let's move to the NFC. We'll start with probably the worst division in football, the NFC South. I have the Saints winning the division at 11-6, followed by the Falcons, Panthers, and Bucks. Panthers and Bucks are going to be bad, but at least the Panthers have a young quarterback, unlike the Bucks. They have Baker Mayfield. But yeah, I have the Saints making the playoffs out of the NFC South.
Yeah, I got the same one. I got the New Orleans Saints. I got the Panthers over the Falcons. I prefer the Panthers defense, even though there are some issues like Brian Burns and stuff in the contract situation. You want to hope that he's going to be out on the field and helping that team. Then I got the Falcons. And then I got the Bucks. The Bucks are just going to be putrid. They're horrible. That Jansen news was terrible. He probably lost his career because his knee. That's a Tampa Bay Bucks team where you were all in on Brady, so you don't have the assets like, the Cardinals or the Texans to rebuild with, but you really have to fold it in and just start from scratch.
And who knows what's going to happen with Mike Evans now. He wants to retire a Buck, They're working on it, but he could potentially be traded.
And to me, like that's one of those situations where it's like, okay, we have to make the decision: are we going like all in on a rebuild? Because Mike Evans is an asset you can sell. Mike Evans isn't an asset you re-sign. I mean, you could, and then he helps the younger guys. But I mean, I don't know if he's an asset that you re-sign.
he
I think he's
wants
an
to
asset you
he,
sell.
he wants to retire a buck, and they've exchanged numbers and whatnot. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of days. I know his agent put a early September date. I don't know if it's. I think it's before the.
I thought it was
I think
before
it's
week
September 9th.
one.
I
Like
think
I
it's
thought it was
September
coming
9th.
up. And listen, I get it. He's been there his whole career. It's the same as Brandon Graham, same as Fletcher Cox, same as Jason Kelly. It's the same as these guys who feel like they just are so entrenched in the fan base, in the team, in the history. And I mean, he's going to go down. Mike Evans is going to go down in history. He has 1,000 receiving yards every single year of his career. Like he's going to go down in history there. But I mean, if you're going full rebuild, like it's easy for Cox, Graham, and Kelsey to sit there and say, yeah, I'll come back because they know how he's going to build them a roster. Yeah. Is it so easy for Mike Evans to say, I want to come back and be in this mess?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's go to the NFC North. How do you have that playing out?
This one was a tough one, the NFC North. This one was a tough one, but I had the Detroit Lions winning it. I have the Vikings as second, but like they're not going to get lucky like last year. 13-4 with a -3 point differential. Like I think it was the first time in history a team won the division with a minus point differential. It was crazy. But I think the Vikings will be there at second. I think the Packers will get third. I think that they still have the pieces there, even though it's not Aaron Rodgers. And then I got the Chicago Bears still being last. I think they're going to get better. They're not going to be 3-14, and they're going to score more than 320 points, 326 points for. But I still think they're just not that good. And I'm not fully bought into the Justin Fields offense yet.
So I have 3 teams from the NFC North making the playoffs. Shocker. I have
Ouch.
Lions.
Yeah, that's ugly.
It is. Lions winning the division, Packers finishing in second, Vikings finishing in third, and the Bears finishing out. I don't think Justin Fields is all that good. People were hyped about his preseason. A lot of his touchdowns were screens. Throw it out to DJ Moore or Mooney and let them run. Like I'm not
DJ Moore. Like they got that it was a 60-yard touchdown run, and it was like minus passing yards for Justin
yards
Fields.
Was more running. But yes, but the Lions will finally end their playoff drought, and they'll make the play. I still think the Lions are a little overrated. Like I don't think Dan Campbell's that good of a coach, and it wouldn't shock me if they implode this year. But we'll see. So I have the Lions, Packers, Vikings, and Bears, but with the Lions, Packers, and Vikings all making the playoffs.
So it's good. It's spicy. I'll get to mine. I do have 2 coming out of that. I have the Lions and the Vikings coming out of that division. I won't go so far as a third. I think even the Giants and Commanders have a better shot than the third team there. But I mean, you just never. The Green Bay Packers are a wild card. That's the thing. You just never know. And I agree with you about the Lions. Like part of me feels like something's hanging on by a thread there. Yeah. And the fact that Jared Goff is still around is part of that thread, I think. And I'm like, I don't think he's that good of a quarterback, and you're still giving him a chance. And now you're going into contract negotiations with him. I don't know.
All right, let's go to the NFC West. I have 2 teams making it out of this division. The Niners winning the division, the Seahawks making the playoffs, finishing in second, and the Rams and Cardinals are going to be dumpster fires. The Cardinals are going to be the worst team in football. Obviously, they're tanking. Like they're tanking without telling us they're tanking. I mean, they got rid of Colt McCoy and whatnot, and they still make.
They're thinking about starting Clayton too. Like, who is Jonathan Gannon to say I'm taking a competitive advantage by not naming?
By the way, did you see that video that he?
It was cringy.
Oh my god,
very cringy. It got better. So once he got outside the first 30 seconds, I was like, okay, I'm still not hyped. I'm not getting behind this, but it's way better than the first 30 seconds when you're talking about coming in on the bus or driving in and burning your gut. I'm like, this is
he is not like looking at the faces of the players. They're like, what the heck are we doing here?
He's not going to see that rebuild through. I'm telling you now, he's not seeing that rebuild through.
I mean, obviously we want him to because we want him to make it to week 17 where he has to come to Philly and get his ass kicked. But Howie needs to find a way to get Buda Baker.
The Cardinals could be like the next Texans. Like you could just be seeing them roll over 2 or 3 coaches before
Well,
they get to their actual coach.
we'll see because now next year they might have they'll have two of the top three picks at least, if not the top two picks, and they can get Caleb Williams or Drake May and Marvin Harrison Jr. or somebody like that, or
Like
some
if you were going to
defensive
commit to
stud.
that rebuild, you totally should have got a bright offensive mind
Oh
in
well,
the building, not
I've always been of the ilk that if you're hiring a coach, it should be an offensive coach. Why? Because if you hire a defensive coach and the offense goes off, the offensive coordinator is getting hired away, and you have to do it all over again. Like
we've
if
seen it. We've seen it. Shane
like
Steichen was gone.
well, yeah, but Nick Sirianni runs the offense. It's Nick Sirianni's offense. You're not hiring Nick Sirianni away from the Eagles. You can hire Shane Steichen and Brian Johnson away and all that.
I was going to say, wouldn't be surprised Brian
But
Johnson goes this year too.
yeah, but it is Nick Sirianni's offense. He's the one that he's the one that puts the game plan together. So like that's why I if I were to ever own a team, which I never will have the money to do that, but it would be fun. I'm hiring an offensive coach because it's an offensive football league and it'll be his offense. He might not be calling the plays, but he's still designing the game plan. Sorry.
Yeah, like defense wins championships if you make the final stop. It's an offense league first. It's an offensive driven league first. So to me, I agree with you. Like I agree with you. And I don't think he sees a rebuild. I think he sees this year through. There's no way he sees this rebuild. And how hard the Cardinals tried to get him, I think he gets to at least year 2. But then they're going to start to see the cracks. And you got the best quarterback. You got the best wide receiver, potentially, because Caleb Williams, I mean, there's talk that he could go back because of how much he's making in his NIL money.
The
like
NIL thing changes things, man. Like people, why would you come out early?
Look at Deion Sanders' son, who went out there, had an amazing game, and now his NIL worth is $3.5 million after one really good game. It like skyrocketed a couple $1,000,000. There's no way he's coming into the NFL making that much money. Why would he rush it? He might as well wait it out.
All right, so what's your NFC West look like?
My NFC West was, I still have the San Francisco 49ers winning it. I have the Seattle Seahawks still coming second. I still think they're going to be decent, 9-8, 10-7, that type of ballpark again. The Rams, like that report that came out about Matt Stafford having a hard time connecting with his teammates and stuff, that's scary. Like you got to be able to connect with your players and like needing their Instagrams and Facebook. Like, oh man, I laughed. But then the Arizona Cardinals dead last. They're probably 1-16, 0-17.
Yep. All right, let's move to the NFC East. What do you got it looking like?
I got the Eagles winning it. I got the Cowboys coming in second, and the Cowboys are going to make the playoffs. I still think they're going to make it. I got the Giants second or third. I still think, I think things are good enough there that I think they're going to be, going to be good enough. Then I got the Commanders in fourth, but it's going to be similar to last year minus the tie. I'm not going to predict a tie, but I think the Giants will be 9-8 and the Commanders 8-9 or something, or it could flip flop. I could be wrong and the Commanders get ahead, but I just don't think either of those teams are there to really compete on the scale like the Eagles and the Cowboys are. But anything could happen, like we saw last season in this NFC. Definitely anything can happen there. So they could make it. The Giants could make it. Brian, they play hard for Brian Daboll. That team loves Brian Daboll. You just don't know. And Martindale, he's a really good defensive coordinator. You don't know what could happen. The Giants could shock us with a 10-7 season or something.
So I have the Eagles winning the NFC East. First time a team won it back-to-back since the Eagles did it back in 03 and 04. The Cowboys finishing in second but not making the playoffs. And I have the Giants and the Commanders taking step back. I think the Giants are frauds. I get Daboll's a good coach, but I think that they're going to be figured out. And the Commanders are going to be bad because Sam Howell's not a good quarterback. I don't think Sam Howell's going to be a good quarterback.
I don't think he is either.
And I have them both, when I say taking step backs, both 5-12, 4-13. That's how bad they're going to be.
I don't think the Giants are going to be that bad. I just
don't know if I see. They're going to be good.
I mean, I could see it with the Commanders because instead so they were doing the bridge quarterback play that the Colts were doing, but on the flip side, they just said, okay, well, we drafted this guy in the 4th round or whatever, so we're just going to play this guy, and they're like, well, we hit that. Do you remember when they first said it? Ron Rivera, or I think it was somebody said we had like a second round grade on him, and we just let him keep falling. No, no, no! Don't sit there and say you let him keep falling because you were okay letting him fall. If he was your guy, you would have taken him in the second round. If you had a second round grade on him, a respectable second round grade on him, you would have been picking this guy up. So the fact that he fell that first speaks to what everybody else felt about him. I agree with you. I don't think he's the answer. Same as in Atlanta. I don't think Desmond Ritter's the answer. These teams feel just compelled to try these guys out because there's no other quarterbacks out there to really go at.
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sold on the Giants. I'm not sold on Washington. What's your NFC playoff picture look like?
My NFC playoff picture looks like so. I got the Eagles going number one, and this may just be our Philadelphia Eagles show fandom. But the 49ers, like if things stay dicey with Nick Bosa, or if he decides to hold out at any point, like that's kind of scary because you need him. He's a very, very focal point of that defense. Then I have the 49ers. Then I got the Lions and Saints, who are probably going to be like 10-7 and 9-8. And then I got the Cowboys, and then I got the Seahawks, and then I got the Vikings.
So I have the Eagles being the number one seed, followed by the Niners, followed by the Lions and the Saints. Then I have Packers, Seahawks, Vikings. So I have the Packers making it. You have the Cowboys making it. You don't have the Packers making it, right?
No, I don't have the Packers making it.
So we have a couple of differences in both the AFC and the NFC.
Again, whereas I see like in the AFC, like you have a 10-7 team, and then underneath them being out, like I see an 8-9 team making it in the NFC, and then it bottoming out. Like I could see the Minnesota Vikings being 9-8 or 8-9, and then it just bottoms out.
Yeah. So I have Eagle. So what's your Super Bowl matchup?
Oh, this is we picked the Packers last year. I hope you don't have them again this year.
Heck no.
I don't even have them in the playoffs. That's how much I gave up on them. I think the Chiefs are going to be there again. I just have the hardest time ruling out Patrick Mahomes and guaranteeing 50 to 60 points a night, pretty much. So I got the Chiefs. I just hate to sound like a homer with the Eagles. It never happens that it's the same to the next year. I just don't know if I can. And the 49ers have such I'm still going with the Eagles because the 49ers just have so many question marks. Like a full season of Brock Purdy at the quarterback position, is it going to be the answer? I don't even know. Like, I don't know if you get a full, like Nick Foles. We talked about Nick Foles. If you gave Nick Foles a full season, are we winning that Super Bowl? Hell no. So if Brock Purdy plays an entire season, are you giving the 49ers a Super Bowl? I'm not giving him a Super Bowl. I don't think that offense clicks like that, but that hopefully there's no 49ers fans listening because they'd be so upset by that sentiment. But so yeah, I'm going with the Chiefs and the Eagles, and I still have the Chiefs winning it. There's still something about the kink in the defensive armor that we are more likely to give up the last point than they are.
So my thing with the Chiefs is, when is Chris Jones going to play? He could potentially sit out the first 9 weeks, sit out until the Eagles game, who knows? And the health of Travis Kelce. Obviously, like that's key. And while I know it's Andy Reid's offense, Matt Nagy is now the offensive coordinator. A little
like I have thought hard about the Bills or the Bengals. Like I think
So
I see your points.
In the AFC, I'm taking the Bengals to go back to the Super Bowl for the second time in 3 years. And then in the NFC, I'm taking the Eagles. I have an Eagles-Bengals Super Bowl. I know a team losing the Super Bowl hasn't made it to the Super Bowl the next year often. I think the Patriots did it after they lost to us, and then they beat the Rams the next year. But like beyond that, it doesn't happen often. But I'm taking the Eagles and the Bengals in the Super Bowl. And Jalen Hurts is going to win the Super Bowl MVP, and the Eagles will get their second Super Bowl in 6 years. So
for some reason, I think it's an AFC team coming out with it because you got to run a gauntlet with the AFC that when you reach that NFC team in the finals, you're probably taking a big breath of relief when you get through that gauntlet. It all depends. But
the Chiefs didn't take a breath of relief last year against the Eagles. The Eagles controlled. The Eagles really played well. A couple of bad things happened here and there, but 35 points is the most points scored by a Super Bowl loser. Like, and Jalen, as Chris Jones said when Hurts was ranked third, I think in the NFL top 100, like he had the best game ever in Super Bowl history for a quarterback. He could have won the
It's like
MVP.
it's him and Nick Foles have like the one
The
and two
top
best
two
games in
rated.
the Super Bowl.
It's
Like
crazy.
it's crazy, like the way that they play. But I mean, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be like in the AFC. I feel bad. There's gonna be like teams sitting at 9-8, 8-9, 10-7 that aren't making the playoffs. As you watch some 8-9 team limp into in the NFC and get demolished in the first round. Like it's a shame to see. But I mean, it's good for the Eagles. It may take some pressure, but at the same time, the Eagles actually have a really hard schedule. They've won the hardest. Like the script flip,
Well,
like we know it does every year.
The Chiefs, like they're facing the Dolphins.
Yeah, so like you're gonna get like a front row seat for a potential Super Bowl preview this season, and you're gonna see, can we stand there and go pound for pound for them?
They have a first place schedule, so they're obviously they get the NFC East teams, but they get the Niners, Seahawks, Rams, and Cardinals. The Rams and Cardinals shouldn't be good. They get the Vikings week 2 again. We'll see how that goes, and then they get the Bucks. So like, and that's in the NFC, and then obviously the AFC East and the Chiefs. So like they're facing really good. Again, I'll say what I said all the time. The Eagles can be better this year than they were last year, but not have as many wins. The schedule's
not have as many sacks, not have as
they're not going to have 70 sacks. Like they'll still go out there and they'll still make plays. They'll still win games, but they're not going to be 14-3. So like we can get beyond
with a plus 133 point differential. Like you can be better. Like
and they're not going to be.
So they were 14-3 last year, but we can sit here and say I believe they can be better as an 11-6 or 10-17 because of what you played.
We picked them to have the number 1 seed, but they potentially might not have the number 1 seed. But I think the Eagles are built to where they can go and play 3 games to get to the Super Bowl. As long and obviously it depends on health. That's the biggest key, the biggest factor is if they can stay healthy.
Agreed.
Right. So Eagles, Bengals, you have Eagles, Chiefs. I have the Eagles winning it. You have the Chiefs winning it. We'll see come February, what is it, February 10th or whatever the Super Bowl is. We'll see, what our predictions look like then. Now, let's move to the Eagles, Patriots, week 1 on the road again. I don't remember the last time the Eagles opened up at home. But the Eagles get to go to Foxborough where the Patriots are going to be honoring Tom Brady. If I was the Eagles, I would bring Nick Foles out to be an honorary captain just because I think it would be awesome. 425, they get the CBS number 1 crew. They get Nance Romo on the call. What are your initial thoughts on the Eagles Patriots game?
Well, I mean, I shared the post earlier this week that Riley Reef is out for the first 4 weeks of the season, and I think that's massive. Like you talk about these edge rushers I felt they were already going to feast, and now you get Calvin Anderson at the right tackle position. Like this can be a big day. This can be one of those big sack days where you're seeing 5, 6, 7 sacks where everyone's like, here comes 70 sacks again, but it'll slow down after this. But I mean, like, this is one of those games, like we've talked about it. The Patriots are such an average team to below average team that we should have no problem. But last year we played the Lions in week 1 and we thought we should have no problem.
Unpredictable.
Yeah, it's super unpredictable. You never know. Most of these guys, Jalen Hurts hasn't taken a snap. AJ Brown hasn't taken a snap. Devontae Smith hasn't taken a snap. None of the starting offensive lines taken a snap. Maybe Cam Jurgens took some, but I don't think so. Like none of these guys have even taken snaps. We don't know what the defense looks like because it was very vanilla all preseason. What happens when you start throwing those nooks and crannies and all this fun stuff into it? Obviously, things are going to go wrong. It's not going to be a perfect science in the first couple weeks. We know the first 2 to 3 weeks are a bit of a struggle, and then you settle into your groove from there. But we then went on to find out the Lions weren't that bad. I don't think that we're going to go on to find out the Patriots aren't that bad. I think we all, well, at least me and you commonly agree that they're that bad. But I mean, that's what stood out to me right away when that Riley Reef report came out. That I was like, man, that's some tough news. That offensive line already isn't great. And then you lose probably, I would argue, your best player on that offensive line. that hurts you even worse because it doesn't just affect right tackle, it affects the right guard, which then affects the center. So it really affects the entirety of the right side of that offensive line, and you have to bring the extra tight end in. Maybe, I mean, if you're the Eagles, you don't bring the extra tight end in to help your backup tackle. Apparently, we've seen that happen before. But like theoretically, you bring in that extra tight end, and then you're wasting the extra body on that side as a blocker, which makes it harder on your offense as well. Like that stood out a lot to me because I think Reef is probably the best player on that whole offense altogether. Like, I mean, it's a really tough loss for them.
Stevenson's good.
Yeah, there's some good, like, and then I look and I'm just like, I feel like we're just at, like, you look at Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, and Juju Smith-Schuster as your wide receivers, and I think our cornerbacks are just head over heels better than them. It's not even close. Like, there's so much it feels like it's not going to be a close game, but because they're honoring Tom Brady, because it's the first week of the season, it's going to be a close game. We're going to hate that it's a close game. We're going to talk about all these things on our show next Tuesday where we're like, oh my God, everything was like this went wrong, that went wrong, and we're going to overreact and things will fall into place. Same as, every other reporter, beat writer is going to do the same thing. But it feels like it's one of those trick games. It's one of those games where we're going to sit here and we're going to say the Eagles are going to win. We're going to win by at least a touchdown, and we're going to win by like a field goal.
Yeah, week one is always, 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 always unpredictable. And you mentioned how last year's game, we didn't know. We thought the Lions were going to be bad, and obviously the Lions were better than we thought. The other thing is Mac Jones actually has an offensive coordinator now, in Bill O'Brien, and now he doesn't have many weapons on the outside. Like he has Hunter Henry and Gesicki at tight end. Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean, he's revenge the Eagles, or he was talking all this trash, after the Super Bowl. So the Eagles are definitely going to want to pin him down. And then, I mean, the running game, they have Zeke too. You got to remember that Zeke always kills the Eagles. But I think you said it with the right tackle being out. I mean, Hassan Reddick could have a big game. Nolan Smith
and
could have a big game. Josh Sweat.
And to me, it doesn't matter if you have Ramondre Stevenson and Zeke, which actually is the only two running backs they have on roster, which is kind of crazy to think about. But it doesn't matter to me if you have Stevenson and Zeke. I think that that's a very good 1-2 punch, thunder, lightning, thunder, and thunder, pretty much. But like, if you don't have the offensive line working, if you don't have the offense clicking downfield, it's going to be a rough day for Stevenson and Zeke. And Zeke hasn't seen a whole lot of the field because he only got signed up 3 weeks ago. Like, so he probably hasn't seen a whole lot of the field. I think, like, I don't know.
Zeke is also not a starter. He's the backup. Like, he can go out there and be a goal. Yeah. He can be the goal line back. My thing is, like, can Matt Patricia give the Eagles anything on Mac Jones, anything on that offense? It's going to be a different offense than what he ran. Again, I don't know why he was
like night and day.
But can the Eagles defensive coaching staff get can the Eagles defensive coaching staff, kind of lost train of thought, get information from Matt Patricia about Mac Jones, about Stevenson, about the offensive line, and about some of the weapons they have over there?
I mean, I think like Mac Jones is one of those guys that you just can't give him time. He's really good with a clean pocket, but he's not going to be as good if you don't give him the time. And this feels like the prime opportunity with Reef out that you don't have to give him time. It's going to be 2 to 3 seconds that you're going to be in his face, and he's not going to have the time to make the decision. Because ultimately, like you said, like there's nothing that scares me as wide receivers go, but as tight ends go, I do get a little more nervous because, like you said, Mike Gesicki's like a jumbo wide receiver. Hunter Henry, he's got those short hands, probably one of the more underrated tight ends in the NFL, probably mostly based on age. But like you look at our linebackers and you think about how thin our linebackers are. Now, Kobe Dean is not someone who I trust to go, if he has to go drop back into coverage and go against Hunter Henry or Gesicki, that he's going to be necessarily an effective coverage linebacker. And then you think about like to me, that's where they could gain that matchup advantage is the tight ends against our linebackers, because you ain't gaining it against cornerbacks. And you could theoretically gain it with Stevenson and Zeke and having like a good, like you just pound the ball. Like it could be a really boring game where they just try to pound the ball down our throat and wear our defense down. But we have such a heavy rotation at tackle, such a heavy rotation at the edge position that I think that they can be effective against the running backs. And I think that they can really shut down shut down the running backs, shut down the quarterback, and then it makes it a really different game when those two cogs aren't working in your offense.
Yeah, and it's going to be key for the Eagles defense to get after Mac Jones. We got an Alabama quarterback matchup, Mac Jones against Jalen Hurts. Let's jump over to the Patriots defense. They're going to run a 3-4. Lawrence Guy and Dietrich Wise are pretty good as their two ends. Matthew Judon can get after the quarterback. Obviously, going up against the best offensive line in football, that should be a really fun matchup, seeing Judon against Mailata, and if he goes over against Lane Johnson. But I don't see it. And Jonathan Jones is good, but I don't. And Christian Gonzalez is the rookie at corner. I like their safeties. I like Kyle Duggar. Jabril Peppers was somebody who I wish the Eagles kind of would have been able to bring in, but he went back to New England. And obviously they have Jalen Mills. I don't know how the Patriots are going to cover A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Quez. I don't know if they're going to be able to stop the Eagles. And
DeAndre Swift, because you probably have him coming out of the backfield.
If Bill Belichick attempts to take away the best offensive weapon on the opposing team, who is that for the Eagles? Because they spread it out. Jalen Hurts is the best offensive player. You're going to try to stop him? Okay, good luck. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. So it's going to be key. Like what do they do? What does Belichick do? Who does he try to stop? And how are the Patriots going to be able to, contain this Eagles offense? The Eagles should be able to put up points. Obviously, week 1, they all haven't played since the Super Bowl. So that could be a worry. But, I mean, the Eagles should be able to put up a bunch of points.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you never know. Like Dallas Goedert got hurt at the end of the year last year, but he was a beast when he was healthy and what he was doing. You got, like you said, you got AJ Brown, you got Devontae Smith, you got Quez Watkins, Olamide Zaccheaus if he's in there, like Zaccheaus and Watkins can definitely be effective, an effective 1-2 punches, wide receiver threes. Like you said, there's guys you can like on this defense, but they're not an all-around strong defense. You can find weak points in it. Christian Gonzalez, like you said, he's a rookie. I really liked him coming out. I think in some mock drafts, you saw him actually going to the Philadelphia Eagles. But at the end of the day, this is his first professional game. Like, I don't really count the preseason snaps. Like they say it is first professional football. We're going up against guys who you were probably, played the year prior, in college.
If you're the defensive coordinator for New England, who's covering A.J. Brown? Who's covering Devontae Smith? Like, does Gonzalez go on Smith and Jones go on Brown? Like,
it becomes difficult because it depends where you put them. If you put A.J. Brown in the slot, obviously Jonathan Jones is their nickel backer. You would think that he's probably going to be on Smith or Brown all night, depending on where they are on the field. But eventually you have to let Christian Gonzalez go and he's going to end up being stuck there. They're probably going to go after him. It makes the most sense to go after him in his first professional game. And whoever's on the outside, they're not going to leave Quez Watkins out there with Christian Gonzalez. They're probably going to try and push A.J. Brown out there. They're probably going to try and push Devontae Smith out there, and they're going to make Gonzalez work. And we've seen, those first couple games for some of these rookie cornerbacks not go so well because they look their way. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up out there with 7-8 targets against him because they're going to try and go after the guy. But it makes it tough because I think, like you said, Jonathan Jones is good, but and then you got Jack Jones as the other outside cornerback who you can probably go after. You can really go after anybody. And like the linebackers, Matthew Judon's more of a rushing guy. He's not going to be a guy who drops back in coverage. So then what? This Bentley guy and Tavay are going to be guys who are going to be able to stop Dallas Goedert. Like, there's so many mismatches that you can take that doesn't they're going to see it ahead of time, or Jalen Hurts is going to see it ahead of time of the mismatch because he's going to see, okay, Jonathan Jones is on A.J. Brown. where's Devontae Smith? Where's Dallas Goedert? Because you know there's going to be a mismatch. Or I got Gainwell coming out of the backfield, or I got Swift coming out of the backfield. And maybe we're just getting way too excited about this offense. But like, it just feels like there's way too many mismatches that even if you have two guys covered, he's got two or three more guys he can go and look at. Plus, he's got his legs.
Yeah. I don't foresee any issues with the Eagles' offense this year. Obviously, injuries, play a part in that. But, I think Brian Johnson's going to make a seamless transition to being the offensive coordinator. Because, again, it's Nick Sirianni's game plan. He just calls the plays. Nick Sirianni's obviously going to have input on the sideline. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think the biggest thing could come down to special teams again. Like the Eagles' special teams hasn't been good the last couple of years. And then we talk about it all the time. The Eagles don't prioritize. They prioritize developmental players over special team aces. So they lost a couple in Zach McPherson and Stuart Bradley. So that'll be an interesting part of how that plays out. Are the Patriots able to take advantage of the Eagles' kind of miscues on special teams?
Yeah, I agree. Like and like we know the Patriots do, like you said, they prioritize bringing in special teams guys, and they can be game changers on the special team side of it. But at the end of the day, I mean, I feel comfortable that this is the type of matchup that the Eagles can take advantage of both offensively and defensively. The only thing that concerns me is obviously the rest of the first couple games of the season and shaking that off and getting things going. But obviously, with how difficult the schedule gets, this is one of those games that you can't take for granted. This is one of those games that you got to go out and you got to win, because when it comes time to play the Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Chiefs, 49, once you get up against some of those teams, those aren't games that we're going to talk about it like in this nature where it's like it's a guaranteed win. That's not necessarily true with or without Chris Jones, with or without Nick Bosa. Those games are not guaranteed wins. Those are game-changing guys, but they also have other game-changing guys as well. So like, this is one of those games where I think you have to win, shake the rest off early, hope you can shake the rest off early and make some big plays and just gain the advantage. I think if you can put up 20, 21, 24 points, that's enough to win this game. So you don't have to shake off the rest of the tune of the Lions last year where we had to put up, what was it, like 45 points? It was some crazy number. You might not have to shake the rest off that much unless the defense is really that bad, which I hope we don't have to be that concerned about it. But, I mean, you just have to shake off the rest enough that I don't think they can put up any more than 21 points.
All right. So your prediction. I'm going to keep track all year this time, and we'll see who has a better year in terms of predicting the Eagles games. What is your score prediction for Eagles at Patriots?
As much as I hate to say it, I'm going with that the Eagles are going to be able to take this pretty handedly, and I'm going to go with a 24-16 game in favor of the Eagles.
All right. And I wrote mine down already. I have 27-13 Eagles. It'll be a slow start, I think. And then I think they'll hit their rhythm. And obviously us Eagles fans, we're very, we're cool, we're calm, we're collected. We won't be, throwing stuff at TVs and cursing after, the first two drives are 3 and outs. But the Eagles will get going and then be able to win going away in the second half. So I have 27-13 Eagles. You have 24-16 Eagles. We both have the Eagles making the Super Bowl this year. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite us. I have Eagles Bengals. You have Eagles Chiefs. It's going to be a fun year, man. Now, I will say this for everybody that likes to tune into our show. The first couple of weeks, chaotic. They had the Sunday game this week, and then a Thursday game, and then followed by a Monday night game. So, like, our schedule is going to be a little wonky until they get back to playing just Sunday games or Sunday and Monday games. But bear with us as we get through the early part of this season, and hopefully the Eagles can have another huge season like they did last year, make it back to the Super Bowl, and this time come away with the Vince Lombardi Trophy.
Agreed, man. Like you said, this is going to come down a lot to health. If we can continue to be as healthy as we were last season, we could be in for another special run. And this is, to me, this isn't like, even last year we got nervous at the end of the year and things came together really well. But like, this feels like this could be a more of a multi-year run. I don't want to speak it too soon into
I mean, they got a
existence,
lot of
but
young
Howie
talent.
has built a really nice roster, good mix of veterans, good mix of youth. And if they keep winning at the rate they're winning, like a Fletcher Cox will want to come back, a Kelsey will want to keep coming back, a Graham will want to keep coming
So
back. So
one thing I want to say before we finish up here, I think after the Super Bowl in 2017, we were looking at the Eagles roster and it was all old. Like they were literally in the bottom 5 in terms of how old their roster was. I think they're in the top 5 to 10 this year and how young they are. So you got to give Howie a lot of credit with how he's built this roster.
I
And
gotta look. I gotta look. I took a screenshot. We're not in the top 5 or 10. I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We're 14th. We're 26.13 is our average 53-man age. The youngest is the Packers, 25.4, and the oldest is the Saints at 27.17, and the Jets at 27.
Well, you see what happens when you subtract Aaron Rodgers from the Packers, add Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, it makes you significantly older. But yeah, so but like 5-6 years ago, we were talking about how the Eagles were just an old roster, aging roster, and now they're really young and really talented. And if Howie can continue to hit on these draft picks, they should
Imagine
be
how
able to
much,
have a
and
sustained
just
run.
think back. Like, I love to think back at how much you dragged Howie through the mud. A lot of commenters dragged Howie through the mud. There was a lot of hate on Howie Roseman, especially when that
Well,
contract extension came down. And I mean, he has hit on some really good picks and he's made some really good decisions. And he could have easily missed on those picks, and we could still be like, I could be joining you and cursing him out. But I mean, at the end of the day,
he
if
deserves a
Howie
grace period.
ever left Philly, he would get a job elsewhere. He's one of those guys who's guaranteed a job
I've
elsewhere.
always said that I wanted him just to handle the money and I wanted a football guy to handle. And like when we had Joe Douglas and Andy Weidel, I think that was actually, but I got to give him credit. And you think about it, teams around the NFL are taking his front office people, the Browns and Andrew Barry, the Jets and Joe
They take
Douglas.
his front office, they take his coaches, and it's like
And
it's
still,
a crazy and yet he can continue to bring these guys in and develop them. And
yeah.
I don't know if that's a testament to Howie or a testament to Howie and then the people who he has in line, like, and how well they train him and how quickly they train him. I don't know where the testament goes to this, but or it could be Sirianni, because Sirianni, I mean, Peterson was a super good coach too. I think he's doing some really good things, but they're not poaching
Well, Jeffrey
Doug
Lurie has
Peterson's
done a
staff
great
the
job
same
at
way as Sirianni's.
Jeffrey Lurie has done a great job at hiring coaches. He hasn't hired a bad coach yet.
As much
But
as we hate sometimes how he goes about the hiring and we say, who the hell is this guy when you have
he knows what
this
he's
list
doing.
of guys available? Whatever method they have behind the scenes at him, like they sit outside the room and they think about this weird method, and then they bring a guy in who's talking about flowers at the first press conference. Whatever method they use works. So we should probably stop questioning it.
Well, hopefully they don't have to hire another coach for another 10 years or so. We'll see about that. But thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour, as the 2023 NFL season is just a couple of days away, and the Philadelphia Eagles are Donovan McNabb number days away from the kicking off their season in New England against the Patriots. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour, follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10, and follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell 54. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
Fly, Eagles, fly.